Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. I'm Thomas.
I'm Julie.
And this week we are going to continue our book series from last week's episode. If you're not familiar with the story, first go back and listen to last week and then come back here, but we'll give you a quick, brief synopsis. We coincidentally started reading the same book, and neither of us had really talked to the other about it. Just one day I was like, hey, I started reading this book, and you're like, hey, that's the one I'm in. And so the book is actually called Marriage, and it's 6 gospel commitments that every couple should make. Yeah. And so we are on commitment number 2, and commitment number 2 is we will make the growth of our marriage our daily commitment.
Yeah, so our first takeaway with that is a good marriage doesn't happen accidentally. So you can even love each other so deeply and still become distant if you stop intentionally investing in that relationship.
Yeah, intentionality is very important. You can't accidentally have a good marriage. And we've talked a little bit about this recently, but one of the things that we intentionally started doing is we started doing a Bible reading challenge together and actually reading the Bible together. We've done Bible reading plans and things like that before, and oftentimes it was like, hey, I'll read on my way to work, you read on your way to work, and then, we never really actually discussed it or did anything together on it. And so this time we decided, hey, you know what? Let's actually do this together. Yeah. Someone had actually given us the Bible that we're using. It's called the Everyday Gospel Bible. And coincidentally, it's by the same author that is this book that we're reading.
Maybe that's what led us to the book Marriage, because we did start reading the Bible, and like you said, the audio daily Bible reading, like we could go through the motions and check it off, but I don't know if we were both being fed enough into putting it back into our marriage. And so this specific commentary Bible by Tripp isn't specifically about marriage.
Right.
His book Marriage is, but this Bible just still unpacks the few chapters that you read each day. And I think us sitting down before bed and actually reading it together and reading that commentary is bringing us closer together. But that doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. A good marriage doesn't happen by accident. We're going to share our daily or weekly habits and encourage you to find those rhythms too.
Yeah, and a couple of things around this that I just want to point out is, one, we're actually recording our thoughts of how each one of these days that we're reading relates to marriage. So like you said, his commentaries don't always specifically relate to marriage. Sometimes they touch on it a little bit, but we're actually recording each day a short video, and we're posting it on our social media pages about how we think those chapters tie into marriage, what we gathered to help our marriage out of that. So make sure you go find us on social media and start following along with those. You can even go get the Everyday Gospel Bible through our website. We'll also have it linked, so that way if you would like to join in on the daily reading challenge with us, you can do that as well. But I do also want to try and be as authentic here as we can, because neither of us is actually reading this book. We're actually listening to the book. Both of us are audiobook listeners, and that's where we're gathering the information from this book, and then we're sitting down and talking about it for these episodes. But we actually decided, as we started reading the Everyday Gospel Bible, that if you start reading Genesis straight up, and you haven't picked up the Bible in a while, or you're not a Bible scholar, man, some of these names are just tongue twisters, and you are gonna struggle. I mean, the first 5 or 6 days we were actually reading it, and it was just draining us because it was so
we were
much.
Reading it out loud to each other.
Yeah, so we're reading it out loud to each other and taking turns, and so it was just really difficult, and so we had to find a different way to do it. So we downloaded the Bible app on our phone, and we found the same version that the Everyday Gospel Bible is, and so one of us is actually reading along in that, while the other one of us is reading along in the app, but also playing the audio, having it read to us. So the app can do the hard work of some of these difficult names and things to pronounce. And so that might be a way that you want to go along with this. Now, the Bible app doesn't have the commentary, so we're still reading those out loud and discussing that, and that's helping us to kind of come up with our takes on how each day can tie into marriage. So I just wanted to bring that up to say, like, when we say we're doing this reading plan, we are following along, but for us it's easier to listen to it as well. So if that takes a roadblock away, by all means, go listen to it. Soak up the word one way or another, whether that's reading or listening. Do your thing.
Yeah. It's just intentionality.
Exactly.
I think that's been better accountability to do it together. And I love that now we're talking about how it applies to marriage and sharing that on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and those platforms. And so these things don't happen, by accident. I think that that's kind of our nightly rhythm now. But other things that marriage, like, couples should know is, like, regular date nights too. And I think I'll speak for us, like, sometimes we can take that for granted. And I remember before we had kids, we would still go out to eat, and there were times that I'm like, I feel like we're just going out because we didn't want to cook dinner.
Right.
But is this really an intentional date night that we're still pursuing each other and our relationship and getting to know each other?
Right.
Even after 20 years of marriage, I mean, even last night, you asked the questions like, wow, like, I didn't know that about you, or you didn't know that about me. Like, we're still going deep in our discussions. And so I think the intentionality of date nights still needs to be there after years later. And if kids now are in the picture, if grandparents or a sitter, aren't available, or financially, or whatever your hurdle is or excuse, I'll say, we've had to get creative. I mean, we've had to, sometimes we'll ask a friend, hey, you watch our kids so we can go out, and then we'll give you a free date night, on another weekend. And we'll watch your kids while you go out. So you can kind of swap like that. Or the kids can go to bed and we can still, like, say, hey, we're going to sit down and, do this dessert night or whatever. So it just takes intentionality.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the roadblocks can be time. Some of it can be financial. I think you touched on a little bit of that. But, you can, if you just think outside the box, you can come up with a relatively easy date night in. Who doesn't have board games in their closet? You've surely got something. At a minimum, you've probably got a deck of cards that you can play with. And you can find a game to play. You surely have some streaming option. So step outside the box of what you normally watch. Sit down on the floor, make a picnic, and watch your favorite show, lay down watching whatever. And oftentimes at night, we have dessert after our kids go to bed because we don't want them to have it. But we'll have dessert just about every night. But you could even change that up. Maybe you don't want to buy all the stuff. Maybe you order DoorDash and have dessert brought to you, something special that's a little bit different. So it doesn't have to be crazy expensive, but you can still stay in if you don't have the babysitter available. So think outside the box. It's really not that difficult to find something to do. It's difficult to execute it. So we have to be intentional to actually execute those date nights, even if we can't go out. So change the thought in your head that date nights have to be out, because they don't.
Yeah, they just have to be planned. And I think that's where the intentionality comes in, and why we made our date night template that we actually have for free on our website, marriagepuzzle.com, because it just helps, like, once it's planned or scheduled, you're going to do it.
Right.
You're going to show up. And so it's just a easy, fun template that you can print out or fill in with your spouse and make date nights hit the calendar.
Yeah. And, a couple more things that have really helped us be intentional. We've talked about this a lot recently. We do a weekly marriage check-in every week. We actually just did it a couple of hours ago today as we're recording this. And it's just one of those touch points where we can intentionally get back on the same page. We can talk about the good things from the week, family-wise, marriage-wise. We can talk about the struggles. We can find a way to team up and combat those struggles that we're having, whether that's a marital struggle or whether that's an external struggle that's just putting pressure and stress on us as a married couple. We can kind of unify and go attack that. And we can finish it up with something that we're looking forward to. So we can still end on a positive note, not end on, oh man, we gotta have this, keep fighting this struggle. We can end on something that we're looking forward to and talk about that. And, we encourage you to make intentional time to touch base on those things every week.
Yeah, and the last idea on this takeaway is to get away, whether that be quarterly, monthly, I don't know, that's a big dream. We're not there yet. Yeah. Quarterly, even if it's annually, a bigger marriage check-in. So we have one coming up that we're planning, and it's just fun. It's not like we're saving all of the conversations for that event, but it's going to be a time away from the kids to rest and relax and be together, but we're also going to use that time to dive into more of those deep conversations and questions to keep pursuing each other and be intentional about our relationship, from looking back to how it is now and our future goals.
Yeah, and just to kind of give some perspective, this time away that we're going to be actually going to a wedding, and it's a few states away from us, so we know when we get there everything's going to be busy with going to the wedding and being with family and things like that. So we're not going to have as much intentional time while we're on this getaway, but we've got a long road trip.
Yeah.
So we're planning a lot of conversations and a lot of radio off time to have those conversations and that dreaming while we're driving, because we've got a long road trip there and a long road trip back. We're intentionally choosing to drive instead of fly, because if we fly, we might be able to get there quicker, but we've got busyness at the airport, and then just, it's hard to have those conversations on a plane.
Yeah.
And so we're purposefully choosing to drive to this so that we can have that talk time. Yes, it's going to take us an extra day, but that is valuable to us, that we can utilize that intentionally.
Yeah. So the takeaway, too, from this marriage book is small things matter. Marriage is shaped by ordinary, everyday moments. And this was true even this week.
Yeah.
I was going to say that Thomas randomly brought me, well, I say randomly, intentionally brought home flowers for me. And I think usually that's like, I'm sorry, here's flowers, and that wasn't what you needed. You didn't need to apologize for anything. It wasn't the makeup flowers. Or congratulations, there's this big milestone, or, birthday or anniversary, here's flowers. It actually wasn't either one of those.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, what? And I don't know if you want to share why you stopped and surprised me.
So two parts to this. One, the reason was because we were expecting something positive to happen, and that positive thing did not happen. Yeah. And we try to be as transparent as possible, but because of the situations, certain people may be listening, we don't want to call them out. But we were expecting something positive to happen, and it didn't. And so I knew you were kind of down, and I knew you just needed that. Now, back up a few hours earlier in the day, I went shopping with my daughter, and she said, hey, can we get mommy some flowers? And at that time, I was like, oh no, it's not today. And so one, it's nice that I've kind of trained her to think about that. So whoever marries her, you better go back and listen, because she's going to be expecting it. So be ready. But then, that kind of stuck with me all day. And I was like, as the day went on, we found out the not so good news. I was like, yeah, we gotta stop and do this. So we went back to the same store that we had already gone to, and went back in, and she was like, so we are doing it? And so, it turned out to be a good surprise. But those everyday moments are not just the flowers. Yes, that is one type of thing, but it's how we talk to each other, whether we listen to each other or not, whether we're paying attention, if we notice each other, which I think that's where the flowers fell under. I noticed you were going to need a pick-me-up that day, and whether we help each other or even just make time for one another. So it's just those little moments throughout the day that you can find to be intentional with your spouse and hone in on those small things because they're important.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought that up as an example, because it was this small thing that mattered so much because I didn't expect it. Because, yes, I think I would have expected it if I came home with great news. And yet, when you came home with them and surprised me, I felt seen. And I'm like, thank you. Like, it just meant the world to me. I cried. Oh my goodness. Like, it was so silly. But I don't know if flowers are a normal thing in your relationship. The point is find something. Like, that's why we talk about the 5 love languages. And gifts is one of those. Gifts is not my actual top love language.
Right.
It's actually words of affirmation. But interestingly enough, with the flowers, I still felt like affirmed that you still saw me, that you still were positive, or and bringing that out in me. But know your spouse's love language, because it may not be what yours is. It probably is not what yours is. And so if you're trying to extend love by doing something that you think you would enjoy, and it's not really connecting with them, like it might be another small thing that you can do if you hone into their love language.
Yeah, totally. And I think that you also need to, just on top of doing their love language and honing in on that, you need to make time to connect in different ways. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, and intimately.
Yeah.
Those are 4 different types of connection points. And if you're listening, you're probably like, well, aren't physically and intimately the same thing? And no, they're actually not. They're actually 2 very different things. They can overlap with each other, yes, but they are not exactly the same thing. And so we just want to give some ideas around each one of these types of connection points that you need to be making with your spouse. And the first one we talked about, physically. This can be as simple as, like, when you sit down at the end of the day, to sit next to them on the couch so that you can hold hands or put your arm around them, or just be close together.
Like, it's okay to touch.
It's in fact, I actually had someone reach out to me and tell me that they specifically are buying a new couch to emphasize their non-sexual touch at the end of the night. And so they said the couch that they had was not conducive for that, because it was, recliners on opposite ends of the couch. They want to have their feet up, so they're getting one that has like a chase and an ottoman, so they can both scoot up next to each other and they can actually be together. And so I think that is just a perfect example of how important just that physical touch is, and the physical touch that doesn't have to lead to sex. Now, if your spouse's love language is physical touch, you get a win-win in this situation. So if you do this, you're just going to be filling their tank. It's easy. If you are like bottom of the barrel on physical touch as your love language, it's going to be a little more difficult for you. You're going to want that space, but find a few times a week to do it. Start somewhere and do that, and it's just going to fill their tank. It's an easy one to do.
Yeah. So it's physical, emotionally, have a device-free time. So you're actually paying attention to each other. I mean, that's like our weekly check-in. We do more than that. Our family dinners. Yep. I know that's not just marriage, but it's very hard to have those conversations or connection points if you're like, and you're still scrolling or like checking. Yep, okay. Like, that's not true emotionally connecting. And so again, we're just talking about the small things matter, and so that's what I would say for emotionally.
Spiritually is the next one, and we kind of really ramped up our spiritual connection this year. We decided to start praying together in the mornings. And so it's like the first thing we do when we wake up. most days, assuming that, a kid has not crawled in, woken us up, and we have to yeah, sometimes they join us, but, sometimes we have to get them moving back off to, get ready for school or whatever, but sometimes they crawl in, join us in praying, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's allowing our connection to be stronger because it's the first thing we do in the morning. It allows our spouse in on what we're thinking about, what we're worried about that day, what we're excited about that day, things that maybe we didn't get to touch base on in this weekly check-in.
Yeah.
Some things that maybe just didn't come to mind, but they're gonna come up as we're thinking about those things and planning out our days and getting ready for our days. So that's one of the things we started doing on top of the Bible reading challenge that we've started recently over the last couple of weeks. That has come in later than the praying together, but those are two ways that we're really trying to elevate our spiritual connection this year.
Yeah. And then intimately, obviously, is have sex, but, when we say small things matter, that's a big thing, but it's meaning small things matter of, just do it. So we've had times in our marriage where we have not been connecting intimately.
Right.
And I think you might have kept a calendar, a mental note of how long. And so I think we are probably the best at it right now in this season of marriage, maybe because we're trying to do all of those other things spiritually, emotionally, physically, so the intimacy is just going to follow. But if you're not there yet, like we have been, then just schedule it this week.
Yeah.
Just schedule it. It doesn't have to be every week at that same time, and that's no one wants to schedule sex, but just do it. What day before it's midnight that you're going to connect intimately with your spouse.
Yeah, we've been big advocates of, scheduling sex with your spouse. And I think that can get taken out of context sometimes that, it always has to be scheduled. We're going to do it at this minute of the day, every Friday, or, whatever. That's not necessarily what we're saying. What we're saying is, pick a day, get it on the calendar, especially if you're in one of these, dry seasons where you're not really connecting in this way. It's hard to then figure out who's going to initiate and who's going to be receptive, and that just gets tricky. But if you have the conversation about it and say, hey, I want to reconnect with you, what day can we do this where we know we'll both be on the same page and ready for it? And you pick a day and you put it on the calendar, and maybe you don't schedule it down to the time. You guys both know your schedules well enough. What time you get home from work. Is morning sex better or is afternoon sex better? Do you need to wait until the kids are in bed? You will both know your schedules well enough to know kind of about the right time, but it gives you that anticipation for that day. And then that's your spark to build the momentum from there and kind of get moving in this department again. And but keep in mind that intimacy is not just sex. Intimacy is all of these, being intentional about all of these other things that we've already talked about. That builds the connection between you two and builds that intimacy so that you can get back on the same page and want to have sex with each other.
Yeah. And then the last idea we have for this takeaway is get some conversation starter cards, and we put them in our car. So we had a family pack that we actually had on our dining room table, and some nights when, the kids didn't have much to say about their day or school or whatever, we would just kind of, open that and ask a question, and it was fun from a family perspective. But we now have a couples deck that we keep in the car, and we're not always alone because we have 4 kids, but in those times that we are together, it's been great. Instead of one person just driving and the other person's just scrolling on their phone and we're wasting that time together, if we don't know what to talk about, then we have those conversation starter cards that sometimes we just need one, and then we talk all about it. If not, then keep going and ask until you're connecting there.
Yeah, we'll put the deck that we recommend posted on our website, and we'll link it so that way it's easy for you to go find one, because it's a really great tool to just get going and help that conversation start and, tie in some of these other things. So let's move on to takeaway number 3. Your marriage needs attention before it needs a crisis. That's a heavy one. Basically, don't wait until something is seriously wrong to start working on your marriage. Healthy marriages are built through consistent investment over time. That's kind of what we've been saying all this episode. Be intentional about it. Get focused and really work on your marriage before something big is wrong. And that's not to say that if something big is already wrong in your marriage that you can't start working on it now. Right. It's not too late. You just have to be intentional. You have to do the work. You have to decide and say, I'm willing to save this. Let me make sure that my spouse is, and let's get to work on it together. But ideally, before you get to that point, it's better to start investing in your marriage and investing in these things so that you can build a strong marriage.
Yeah, let me encourage you with Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.
Yeah.
And so our marriage question for this week is, what is one small thing you can intentionally do this week to make your marriage stronger?
Yeah. We've given you a lot of examples so far, so if you need to go back and listen to the episode again, send it to your spouse so that you can find the right one thing that you can do.
You can.
Now, I don't want you to send it to your spouse and say, what's the one thing you're going to do this week to make our marriage stronger? You got to look in the mirror first and say, okay, what do I need to do? What's an area I can improve in? What's an area that I could show support to my spouse or love to my spouse or connect with my spouse physically, emotionally, or spiritually? Be brave and say something. I think when we started praying together, it was one of those things like that's never really been a strength of mine. And so I think I brought it up to you as kind of like I'm nervous about this. Can we just do this together? And it's gone really well. It's been great. And you just have to have enough courage to tell your spouse that you want to work on something. And I bet more often than not, they're going to be willing to agree with you and work on it with you and join in because they probably want the same thing too. Yeah. Even if they don't want that exact same little piece that you want to work on, overall, they probably want to make the marriage stronger too.
Yeah, and just for accountability, we want to hear what it is. So if you're bold enough, put it in the comments. If it's more private, message us. Yeah. And I think that could be the first step for you to actually commit to what's the one small thing that you're going to intentionally do this week to make your marriage stronger. Yeah. We want to know.
I've heard it said before that goals are just dreams until you write it down. So consider that one thing that you're going to do just a dream until you write it down and send it over to us to have that accountability. Or if you're too nervous to send it to us for some reason, text your spouse and say, here's the thing I'm going to do to make our marriage better this week. And let them know, because then they can hold you accountable. Or at least you'll hold yourself accountable to that you told them that. So, but we would love to hear about it. We love hearing from you guys to tell us what's going on in your marriage.
Help cheer you on.
Yeah, we want to support you all the time. So thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure you follow us in all of the social media channels linked down below, and subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you back next week where we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time.